There are a lot of people out there who have this mental block saying, oh, I'm not a technologist. Like Satya Nadella says, there is no company that is not a tech company today. Chat PwC was one of the first things that the firm had ruled out. By 2030, it's a $15 trillion economic impact that this technology is supposed to bring to the table. How can I use AI, GenAI, for doing the job better? We became the largest enterprise customers for OpenAI, about 90,000 plus licenses sort of picked up from there.
Would you highlight a little bit about your journey, very little, as to how did you get into the role of a chief digital officer?
It's an interesting journey. I'm actually a chartered accountant, and I started off as an auditor, and the initial journey of audit sort of led me into something called internal audits, risk management, that sort of moved on to process consulting. And the more you start doing that, you kind of realize as much as you can advise how to manage risks, the bigger opportunity in the market is to actually manage risks. And you can't manage risks unless you bring in a layer of technology to be able to put your arms around the length and breadth of businesses. I mean, businesses are global. There are millions of transactions that are happening, and you want to find that needle in a haystack. And to really be able to do that, you have to bring technology. So while I maybe have been a chartered accountant working on the risk world, you had to bring in technology. You had to bring in alliances to be able to disrupt that space. And just when we thought we were doing pretty well in that space, my boss sort of came out to me and said, what you're doing for risk is something you could do for all parts of the firm that are non-tech. So whether it's tax, deals, and some of the other parts, that's where I sort of started bringing technology into the fold.
Can you highlight, your journey a little bit about PwC? What is your current role?
Yeah, I'm currently the chief digital officer of the firm, and I also run the TMT sector. As a chief digital officer, my day job is to think digital and transformation, and almost, if I were to say crudely, practice what we preach to the market for the firm. Get ready for the future of business as a firm. As a TMT leader, I run the tech, media, and the telecom sector. I represent the firm for the tech, media, and telecom sector. So anything that the firm does in this sector, whether it's audit, tax, consulting, deals, risk, is something that I represent. Uh, uh, Similarly, I think overall about the firm, we are a multidisciplinary professional services firm, and what that means is we are fairly well-rounded in terms of covering the entire needs of the business. So, whether it's helping companies do the listing, whether it's sort of looking at financial reporting, looking at audits, looking at deals, looking at risks, looking at consulting needs of theirs, figuring out transformation opportunities, bringing in a layer of technology, getting the startups onto the table, is the entire suite that the firm brings to the table.
So you don't have to be a technologist to be a CDO.
I know that may not be the most popular view, but I really want to tell people here that there is a layer of envisioning that needs to get done. Your ability to think what technology can do to disrupt a business or create an opportunity, or how can you unlock value by bringing in technology and setting up a new business or a business model, does not need core technology coding capabilities. You should of course be abreast of what that technology does and how it creates an opportunity, and that the years of grind and the experience of working with companies sort of gets you to the table. And that too, by the way, in the world of generative AI and some of the emerging technologies, is getting easier by the day. I mean, today a GitHub lets you write the code in some fashion with 60, 70, 80% efficiency. So the cost of getting those techies to the table is also going down. So I strongly encourage, there are a lot of people out there who have this mental block saying, oh, I'm not a technologist. Like Satya Nadella says, there is no company that is not a tech company today. I don't think there is any role today that's not a tech role. And all of us, whether we are engineers, whether we are doctors, whether we are architects, whether we are chartered accountants, there has to be a layer of technology in it. You should be happy and proud of the fact that you understand business and you also understand technology.
Okay, so Manpreet, now diving into AI, right? So recently there has been a lot of news being splashed about big fours investing in AI. So from what I read, PwC invested in AI in 2023, like a 1 billion commitment over the next 3 years. Okay, so what does this mean?
So see, generative AI is a massive opportunity, but if you put it, when we spent $1 billion, we had to solve for multiple things. First and foremost, we wanted to get the workforce fully comfortable and excited about generative AI. So there's a lot of money that we had to spend in terms of getting the workforce upskilled. So, understanding what that technology could do, how is that technology different from some of the past that was there, and why you should be excited about the technology because it unlocks so many opportunities and creates new revenue streams for the firm, not just the firm, but the wider corporate environment. So, skilling people was very, very important. The second element was you don't just want people to get skilled on slides. You want to give technology in their hands so that they can play with it. Now, how do you create a safe environment, secure environment where 250,000 people all around the world get access to AI in a safe, secure environment, and that they can use it for desk productivity, day-to-day benefits, so they can really experience the technology at hand. And that's where the firm sort of invested in a platform called Chat PwC, which is a secure enterprise AI platform that allows us to be able to harness the power of AI at work. So again, that's something which is, and we were possibly the first firm to have done that at that scale which we are talking about. So that's the second block. The third block, of course, was, how do we now bring in this to be able to shape our services and offerings in the market. So as much as our teams are skilled, and they have a platform for their internal productivity, how do we shape our services, existing services, the large host of services that we have, and power them with AI so that our clients get greater value, so that our clients can experience AI at work. And in that journey, we had a host of products that we had built. A layer of GenAI in those products was brought in as well, and that made a difference. And last but not the least, even if the citizen was given the AI platform, how as a large firm our delivery gets industrialized through AI. So if I land up doing a deals engagement today, how will AI make that deals engagement look different? How will the tax engagement, filing a return to the government, could be very, very different with an AI coming to the table. Second block is to be able to go out and shape our offerings from a market standpoint, because the customer needs to be able to get better value. That's the business we are in. We want to create more and more value for them. And third, as a firm, how do we sweat AI for creating delivery platforms that can create a competitive advantage for ourselves and create a scale for ourselves that leverages AI at work. In fact, early November 2022, when GenAI sort of started becoming a news, and people who track technologies started getting blown away with it. And by about end of November, early December, there was a news saying 100 million people around the world have embraced GenAI, Chat GPT, and never in the consumer technology space had anything, whether it was a Facebook or a Meta or whatever, Instagram, nothing, TikTok, nothing in the world till date had gotten 100 million consumers got excited in just 60 days, the adoption being that high. And then the next masterstroke that we worked on was, we said, make this real for people. So we invested in setting up a GenAI lab. And as much as GenAI lab is of great value for the market and customers, we said, let's set up a GenAI lab where these people can walk into the lab and actually tinker with technology, play with technology in a safe environment, so that they've read it, they've seen it, they've done a Coursera program, they've done a LinkedIn program, they've heard an expert, but now you can play with it. And in about 15, 16 weeks of that lab being set, that lab would have been set up sometime in about June of 23. In about 3 to 4 months of that lab being set up, we had again another 5,000-6,000 people sort of flock into the lab and play with technology. And that was really, really powerful, because each time you came in and you played with it, one, you conceptually got a lot more clear, you got a lot more excited, you felt like you could control the technology, and you had great stories to take back to your friends, for your friends and for your customers as well. And that sort of immediately rubbed off to the market as well, where these stories sort of reached out to our customers, and customers said, hey, can I come to your lab, can we see your lab? And hundreds of customers then sort of came in, and we ran workshops with them. They could tinker around with technology, play with technology, get some conceptual clarity. And once the clients started coming in, it was almost like an established wave. I mean,
Yep.
we are a customer services environment, and therefore when our customers are interested and they're talking about technology, the firm kind of gets together to be able to respond to that. So it almost became like a very uh, organized activation for our employees at large. And not to forget, like I mentioned, Chat PwC was one of the first things that the firm had rolled out. There was so much of information thrown out on GenAI, so many videos floating, and the whole WhatsApp university sort of gets people bamboozled in terms of what it will do and what it will not do. I mean, we saw after the initial inhibition, everybody wanted to get started, but didn't know where to get started with. I know it can create a 10%, 20%, 30% market opportunity for me, but where do I start? Do I spend $1 billion like some of the large firms, or do I start? Do I do small experiments? And that's the first thing we realized, that the best thing we could do for our customers is to bring a GenAI in a box story that promises a customer saying, can I hold your hands and get you started on the GenAI journey in about a 6 to 8 week window? And what does that mean when I say get you started? The first block, and you'll relate to this, every CEO will have in the mind is, okay, what the heck is GenAI? What does it mean in terms of the opportunity landscape in my business, in my context? Can you tell me what are the 100 things it can do for me? And more importantly, within that first block, how do I prioritize? Where do I get started within that opportunity? There's opportunity in operations and customers and marketing and finance and tech. There's opportunity everywhere. Where do I get started? What is your advice, PwC? What is your advice, Manpreet? What is your, where is it that I will do the maximum unlock of value? So that's the first block. The second block was very important to say, what's my tech and data maturity? As a company, do I have the data that I need to be able to exploit AI? And what's the maturity of that data? Do I have a data lake in place? Do I need to set that up? What will be the infrastructure requirements I'll need to do? What are the choices I need to make amidst various big investments that are happening? Do I choose company one over a company two, or a startup, or a consulting firm? So can you help me with the tech assessment, tech data and infra assessment as the block two? Block three for us was to be able to go back and saying, once you're clear as to where you want to get started, what are the tech choices you need to make? Block three was, there is an element of risk around AI, right? Everybody says it's a black box. How can I trust AI? How will I get explainability sorted? How can I solve for bias? How can I solve for cyber related issues? How can I solve for privacy related issues? So, PwC, can you come and tell me what are the guardrails I should set up so that it doesn't land me into a wrong spot, so that I'm in a safe zone? And just the last block is, if I'm sorted with the three blocks, to keep the flywheel moving, I need
Yeah.
to build a digital culture. I need to get my people trained. I not just need to get my people excited, but I need to create depth of capabilities for the AI factory to be sustained in the company. So that's the four blocks that we got started with. That was the GenAI lab story. And that got us quickly to customers. And that created many opportunities where we picked up POCs, and then those POCs converted into large enterprise implementations. So
That's
that's on the
great.
customer side. And and the last block, of course, was our own delivery platforms and how we bring that to the table. And I'll just give a small example on that. Let's say for a tax business, we have about 3,000 people in the tax business. And in that business, how can I bring in a platform? And we invested in a platform called Harvey.ai. You could sort of Google on that. And that is a trained platform that allows us to manage taxes and tax related compliance issues. So there's so much of regulations and so many interdisciplinary regulations that a tax professional has to track to be able to support a business decision. Today, all of that, when put onto Harvey, gets us concise information. So a lot of our desk time, research time, synthesizing, summarizing, deep retrieval, all of that gets managed through Harvey. So it's platforms like these that we are beginning to invest in, that are industrializing our delivery and hopefully creating a competitive advantage for us.
When you talk about PwC lab, so I imagine a room where I enter in. There are a lot of computers. I could also see some robots. So what is the lab like?
So it's a, you're right. It's a it's a large room which has a fair amount of screens and corners where you have various prototypes that have been put into play. So let's say if you're a CFO and you walk into that room, you want to get an idea on saying, okay, can you give me an understanding of what are the few technology patterns that I can expect from GenAI? And if I say GenAI allows you to do deep retrieval, they'd say, okay, can you show me how that gets done? So we'll take them to a corner, get them to an area where we have a contracts prototype and a use case in place. And we'd say, see, I've got 1 million contracts here. I'm going to search for saying, get me contracts that have unlimited liability and are most vulnerable for me as a firm for the business that I do. And with that prompt, you're talking to millions of contracts in one go for it to filter out the 20 to say, what, these are your biggest risks. Now that's a very live way of showing a customer what deep retrieval is and how it can be worked in an area that's of interest to them. So we've got corners that address different parts of the value chain. So we've got areas for marketing, customer services, dealing with areas like operations, which is the core, like things like supply chain, logistics, and then the whole operating backbone of any company: finance, IT, risk management, and the people organization. So those are the blocks that we have. So people typically get in, we are able to curate their experience. They go from one sort of demo to the other demo, and you build a conversation, and then you do a little bit of a brainstorm and a workshop, so they are able to what they've seen contextualize to their business. So Manpreet, if this is what I've seen, if I were to take this example to my company, this is what I'd like to do. How will we do that? So it gets a
Yeah.
little constructive that is.
Next question is, when you talk about PwC partnering with OpenAI, you guys have is one of their largest enterprise customer. What does this mean, and what does this mean to folks who are working at PwC and also to clients?
Yeah, so not getting into a lot of details on that, but we've been one of the largest customers of OpenAI. So first and foremost, as I said, we are in the business of trying out technologies, mastering it in our own worlds. We are a large business in ourselves, and as we do that, taking our story to the customers as well. We are the client's hero. We have to solve it for us, and what we do for ourselves that works well, we like to take to the market as well. So it's the same story with OpenAI. We became the largest enterprise customers for OpenAI. About 90,000 plus licenses sort of picked up from them. Obviously, a fair amount of work's been done in terms of building out, leveraging those models and solving our internal needs and needs of our customers. And now with that, our intricate understanding of the OpenAI environment and the underlying models is fairly high for OpenAI and PwC to come together to saying PwC can resell or offer the OpenAI enterprise licenses to our customers. And again, we're not in the business of selling licenses, but then leveraging those licenses to help solve customers their problem. So when I said in the second block, where in my GenAI in a box, where I said companies have to make tech choices.
Yeah.
In the tech choices for companies that are going the OpenAI path, they will have PwC as somebody who can represent OpenAI in terms of bringing the license and the domain capabilities to be able to implement a solution that unlocks value for them. That's
Oh,
what this deal makes. That's what this is about.
okay. So if I'm a client, I can also go to OpenAI and buy the license myself,
But
or
how will you implement it? What will that license do to
okay.
you?
Yep.
So
Yep.
you would typically come to PwC and get the license and get the underlying implementation done to be able to get the value eventually out of it.
Okay.
Similarly, we
Amazing.
have an alliance with the Llama 3 as well. Meta, we're the only firm that that has a current relationship with them. And what that means is you're able to, if you're trying to work on an open source model, you would come to PwC, leverage the Llama relationship, our domain capability, and be able to build a model to be able to unlock value. So
Okay.
alliances is a very big part of this large technology play.
You guys have you have the finance transformation team, which is a huge team, the digital transformation team. Do you have a separate team for AI?
We have key people within sectors and competencies that represent the AI requirement. And within that, we have split of people who are focused on the customers versus focused on internal delivery.
Okay, so it's like a web. It's not one department has AI and you go. No, it cannot work that way.
It cannot work that way because AI, Gen AI, is a very, very democratized opportunity. In the past, anything to do with AI was a CTO, CIO agenda. You would go to the CTO and say, "Oh, can you help solve this big data issue for me? Or can you help create a predictive model for me?" In the world of Gen AI, the idea is that the citizen is empowered if you have the right tools to be able to play with AI or Gen AI. And therefore, you have to have that hub and spoke for people for AI to be sitting closer to business where the action is. So there is AI in HR today. I mean, a lot of HR heads are saying, I want to create a recruitment co-pilot that helps me figure out how my entire hire to retire cycle can be managed much more effectively, how my trainings can get be delivered bite-sized, relevant to the context of the role in the organization. One size fits all is going away. So it's the HR head talking about it. It's the supply chain head talking about it. It's the finance heads talking about it. So it's technology getting closer to each one of them. And that's why when we say it's democratized, that's what we mean. It's democratized.
If you could elaborate, what is the impact of AI, say, on audit?
So I won't pretend being the most qualified auditor at this point in time, but the ground reality is as an auditor, you need to do two things. I'm speaking of my personal intuitive experience at this point in time. One, of course, is your customers are implementing AI solutions at their work. So if there is a CFO client of yours who's got an AI solution that helps them do financial reporting, how can you ignore that? You have to audit that. You have to review that. You have to understand that to ensure that there is some trust in that underlying AI model that's been put together. So it's almost your responsibility to not just audit the number, but audit the process and the underlying technology. And today, technology includes AI and Gen AI as well. So that's one big expectation. And therefore, you need to be skilled enough to be able to do that job. Or if you don't have the skill, get the right experts to be able to do that for you. The second part, of course, is to say, how can I use AI, Gen AI, for doing the job better? So, for example, if I have a if I am auditing a company that has millions of transactions, how can I find that needle in a haystack, like I mentioned earlier, through GenAI. Today, GenAI allows you to talk to data. I don't have to necessarily put those Excel formulas and SQL formulas to get to where I need to get to. I can give scenarios in natural language and be able to get the outputs out. And hence, my ability to sweat that data and get better, sharper insights is much, much higher. How do I leverage that? My understanding of compliances, my understanding of horizon scan of what the emerging regulations are going to be. Today, we don't have a lot of regulations on AI. What's China doing? What's US doing? What's Europe doing? Where is the drift? And what can I learn from them today in helping advise my customer is something you could do leveraging AI.
Okay.
So, two parts of it. How do you create comfort and confidence around AI being used by the customer? And how do you start using AI for you to be able to do a better job, quicker job, and a more effective job by leveraging AI?
Okay, cool. Well said. Okay, so this is an interesting question. We ask a lot of folks what to ask you, and this was a common question. So, Gartner has predicted huge investments in AI in the next by enterprises. So enterprises are going to invest largely in AI by 2027. It will be almost 300 billion, double of what it is today, right? So with enterprises using AI, how would this, won't this conflict with, say, a consulting firm? Won't the knowledge be commonplace now with technology? So what's your take on it? I don't know if I was clear about it, but how do you distinguish yourself as a consulting firm with your clients?
Yeah, I get the drift of your question. So, I mean, a lot of people can get insecure about saying, oh, AI will do as much. If AI can solve 70% of what a consultant was doing in the past, oh my God, will there be relevance for consulting? And you can extend the question a little bit more in terms of saying, what will it do to jobs at all? Because,
Yeah,
today a computer could do so much that a job could do.
yeah,
So, here's my reaction to it. It's a natural apprehension, anxiety that anybody can go through because technology is getting really, really powerful. But if you look at the research reports today, I mean, PwC itself says that AI is a $15 trillion opportunity. By 2030, it's a $15 trillion economic impact that this technology is supposed to bring to the table. When you start creating that additional economic impetus, even if that gets delivered at 50% extra efficiency, that's still net new jobs being created, right? There are reports today saying that in the year 2024, forget about 2030, forget about the Gartner report that's saying in 27 the money will be spent. This year, it's going to be $200 billion plus economic activity that will be done on AI. So, is AI contributing to economic activity and jobs, or is it taking it away? So I think the question is, we will have to reskill and upskill ourselves to be relevant in that economy. And the same question applied when the internet came in. Oh my God, if internet comes e-commerce, the whole kirana dukans will go away. The same question came through when industrialization came through, saying, oh, industrialization means we will not use labor and everything will be automated. What happened? The scale of activity went crazy, expanded significantly for more jobs to get created. So I'm a big believer of AI actually contributing to economic benefits and social welfare. Of course, it needs to be regulated. Of course, it needs to be well managed at a global level, at a country level. But net new, it's a big opportunity if, as a country and as a company and as an individual, we stay geared up on taking the charge of upskilling ourselves. As I said, as a company and as an employee, and of course, as a country.
so it was mentioned recently in a Deloitte report. Okay, one of the big fours, they had a report which says if now the task that somebody with 3 years of experience is doing can be done with somebody with just 1 year of experience and Gen AI. So how will this impact the growth in a big four, according to you?
So, first and foremost, as I kept saying, the net new economic activity will grow. And when that net new economic activity grows, there's clearly going to be more opportunities that will be created pretty much across the pyramid. Now, if you have a Gen AI and an ecosystem of Gen AI related technologies that allows you to be able to do the 5 patterns that I said, that allow you. So let me put it this way. I ask you a question that you don't have a sense of. You will Google that. You will read the first article. You'll get some sense. Second article makes it stronger. Third article makes you feel like, yes, you know it. You read 5 articles. You can go out and speak about it. That research gives you the confidence. Now, if GenAI gives that research to you in 60 seconds on your fingertips, a fresh college graduate with GenAI and the ability to use GenAI very effectively can allow that first fresh graduate to work better and smarter than the one that was without GenAI.
Yeah,
Very, very simple.
yeah.
And with that, I suspect efficiency of doing more with less will begin to start coming in. that will actually create better career paths for people. I actually think the pyramids right now are this way. You have more people in the bottom and less people at the top. If you look at it, because technology is doing the bottom, the pyramids will reverse. You will have more people at the top and less people sort of doing the grunt work. So the jobs will become more material, and therefore it'll be a greater opportunity. So I actually think it should accelerate things. But again, it depends on how skilled you are and how confident you are in terms of leveraging the technology at work.
Who is responsible for AI adoption, or at least right now in large enterprises within the organization? Is it the CFO? Is it the CIO? Is it the CTO? Who is it?
My At least my take is it's a democratized opportunity. So every function will have to take charge of making sure they are sweating AI and creating a benefit, economic benefit, productivity benefit, transformative benefit for their function. So if you are in your function as a functional leader not sort of exciting your teams, you're definitely missing a trick in the hat. That's one. Second, because it is a democratized opportunity and every function needs to play a role, to me it is a CEO agenda. It's the CEO who has to go back and saying, how can my broader leadership team and the organization sweat Gen AI to be able to create a competitive advantage, to be able to create a hyper personalized experience for their customers, to be able to create a hyper personalized environment for employees. And then, of course, every function needs to play a role. CDOs and CIOs and CTOs have to enable it. They have to accelerate that journey. But clearly, adoption has to be with the business and the functions.
How do I upskill myself? Talking from a finance perspective, like I'm an auditor, I'm a tax professional, I'm a CFO, I'm a finance controller. How do I upskill myself? What do I do?
It's extremely, there is so much of content out there in terms of figuring out AI, demystifying AI, understanding what it does, but you have to spend the time. Everybody's kind of waiting, saying, unless I go to a university and get the certificate, or you know what, I'm not skilled. I keep telling people, if 100 million users in 60 days of GenAI being available on Chat GPT were the ones who embraced it, they didn't go through a Harvard degree to be able to understand how GenAI had to be used. It is extremely intuitive and relevant. You have to play it to use it to become an expert at it. You didn't go through a university to learn how to use WhatsApp, right? So it's very, very intuitive. It's just that you need to spend that initial time to kind of get yourself started. So my first and simple ask for everyone here is, even before you start figuring out a degree or a certification or a video that you need to see to be able to learn it, please try it. Get the consumer app, a Chat GPT or a Google or whatever. Just get a GenAI app onto your phone and start using it on your day-to-day basis. I mean, let me give you a small trivia, Chantel, and you'll be able to relate to it. Your audience will be able to relate to it. My son, who's all of 14, sort of moved to an international school, and he had to go through a Spanish curriculum, and he was a mid-year transfer, and he was struggling, and he had an exam to write. And just the day before the exam, he went to GPT Enterprise, Chat GPT, the consumer app, and he says, can you create an exam for an IB board student for Spanish? Now, it figured out what is the format, what is the scoring. They came up with a exact questionnaire. He took a printout, filled up the form, clicked the photo, put it up on GPT, saying, "Can you please do a marking as though an IB teacher would rate this exam?" He got a score. Then he went out and said, "Basis this score and my performance, can you tell me what are the patterns of things that I'm messing up on? What do I need to improve on?" He got a message. Then he says, "Can you give me some content that I can learn and practice in the next 2 hours to be better prepared for my exam tomorrow?" It created some content. This is a 14-year-old learning Gen AI, and through Gen AI learning Spanish and being better prepared for an outcome. So it's that easy. So my suggestion is, today go to ChatGPT today and type saying, "I'm a finance professional and I want to figure out what Gen AI can do to finance. Can you give me some bullets to learn, some aspects to think?" You will get 6 points. Each of those 6 points are your cues for a YouTube for you to pick up that video or pick up a LinkedIn certification or a Coursera certification or whatever. But get started. It's very, very easy and straightforward. What will this do to FP&A? How will the future of business analytics and business partnership going to change? Type that, put that on YouTube. You will get like a zillion videos out there. How can I talk to data? I hear people are saying we can talk to data. How will it work? You'll hear about a few technologies and startups out there in that space. and then it becomes a lot more easier. So again, my suggestion is don't get with the vogue of, oh, prompt engineering is very complicated and that's a $275,000 salary and I now need to do a course. Of course you can do all of that, it'll make you better, but the jump start is much easier than what we are making it out to be. Obviously, when we want to be an expert and do an AI job, we will have to upskill ourselves, but get started is my suggestion.
Okay, so from what I understand, the way your son asked those questions mattered a lot to get the reply. So your the ability to draft correct prompts is something that's going to be very important, right? Which will
Yes,
distinguish.
Shantanu, I completely agree. Prompting is a very, very deep skill, and you can do a whole PhD in that, and that will create a lot of value. But I can tell you, 80% of your users who don't necessarily run an AI job just need to sweat a platform better, and they know what their questions need to be as far as their jobs are concerned. If I'm an auditor, if I'm an internal auditor and I'm looking at data and I want to figure out saying, is there a duplicate payment that's happening in my dump of accounts payable invoices? That's all I need to ask. Where is the prompt engineering in that?
Okay.
So you're as a user, your questioning has to be reflective of the domain in which you need the answer. And if you're questioning well, you will get the answers well. When you start using GenAI for solving problems at work, building models at work, that's where prompting will become even more critical as a capability, and prompt libraries, etc. There are many ways to be able to solve that, but that to me is step two. But let's be an expert at step one first. Let's start. I mean, if unless 80% of your audience raises a hand and said, yes, we've used GenAI for solving significant amount of personal issues that we have today. I mean, there are 7 times in a day that I get to that platform to solve my day-to-day needs. I understand. You understand it, and now you need to move to that next level. But a lot of people still haven't gone there yet.
Okay. So what is the next level? What if I'm great at prompting? What is the next level? How do I upskill myself? Say I'm a finance controller, I'm a CFO, I'm an auditor. What do I do?
So the first thing, as I said, you need to do is, if you're a finance controller, how are you using a GenAI platform for doing better analytics? How are you using a GenAI platform for helping process better invoices or actually exercising your controllership role better? Or how are you using GenAI platform to be able to find exceptions in the data that smell of a fraud? Using that is your step one, which is where I'm saying, if I look at broad corporate India, not a lot of people have gotten started. That's your step one. Please pick up a platform and start using it. Like at PwC, I'm saying we have a Harvey platform. If you bring in a Harvey platform onto your desk, that Harvey platform, when you put data and ask a question, it will help you find that exception in a haystack, or it will give you an external commentary and a research. The second step of maturity on scaling is, let's say, yes, I am using it already. Very good. Now you want to get to the next level, which is where you now need to go back and saying, I have so much of my own internal data. Can I build a custom model that leverages the data and gives me deeper insights than just a general model? Like sometimes you search the internet and you get results, versus sometimes you search your own internal knowledge management portal. That specific research is very captive and unique to you. That's your comparative advantage. If you want to get to that step two, you need to know how to use that data and put it into a general model for you to get sharper insights. When you do that, you will need prompt engineering. You will need fine tuning and embedding of information onto a LLM model. That's where level two comes in. But again, as I said, Chantel, 80% of the people don't need to get there. The biggest value unlock will happen with the level one that I'm talking about. So if you're doing a day job that has 10 steps, and in those 10 steps, there is no AI or Gen AI being used, you have to ask a question: how do I get started with bringing AI onto the table? And that doesn't mean you need to code it. That means you need to buy that technology or leverage that technology or get a POC for that technology to be able to make a business case. That's something that's expected for you to do.
Okay.
And there are umpteen consulting firms, there are startups out there are SaaS companies out there who have the offerings for you to be able to leverage it. So please go out and explore.
Cool. Manpreet, thank you so much.